Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Your Mark on the World show. We're recording this episode for Forbes, where I'm a contributor covering social entrepreneurship and impact investing. And today's guest is Rob Gitin. He is the executive director and co-founder of At The Crossroads, serving homeless youth in San Francisco. You don't want to miss this episode.
Welcome to Your Mark on the World, bringing you another changemaker with champion of social good, Devin D. Thorpe.
Rob, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be on. How are you doing, Devin?
Rob, I'm thrilled to have you. That's how I'm doing. I really am excited about the work that you're doing and the organization you've created, and I appreciate you taking the time to be on the show today. Tell us a little bit, give us a quick overview of your work at The Crossroads.
Sure. So At The Crossroads focuses on San Francisco's most disconnected homeless youth. So that means young people who've either been kicked out of other programs or who've never set foot in them. And our goal with these young people is to help them build outstanding lives as they define them. And the basic model is about eliminating all barriers to access. So we walk the streets at nighttime, reaching out to young people on their turf. And our focus is building long-term unconditional relationships. We believe that unconditional relationships can transform the lives of the people that we work with.
Well, it seems that is key. I mean, we all understand, all of us who are watching are fortunate probably to have some key relationships in our life, and we see how that changes our lives. How do you build relationships with kids who are not participating in any traditional program, that are difficult to find, have no place to sleep at night, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, you build it very carefully, very gently, one step at a time. You don't try to create leaps of trust with the young people that we work with. You don't tell them you can trust me. You let them decide when they want to trust you and how they want to trust you and how much. You let them dictate everything, and you never stop supporting them, no matter how much they're struggling, no matter what decision they're making. That is the key part of it. They have to know that you are there for them through thick and thin, and that you're not just saying that, but that you will actually live up to that.
Yeah. How do you convince, I call them kids, but you've got a 22-year-old guy who's on the street. He's hasn't been housed maybe for 5 years or more, been on the street. How do you convince him to trust? What are those steps that you go through?
Yeah, the steps begin from the first interaction. So we go to them rather than asking them to come to us. So we walk the streets at nighttime in the Tenderloin, and let's say you were one of those young people. I would just go up to you and say, could you use any snacks or socks tonight? And your reaction might be, absolutely, I'd love some. Your reaction might be profane and saying, get out of my face, or anywhere in between. And that's fine. And we are out there night after night after night. If it takes 50 times of seeing you before you want to take a pair of socks from me, that's fine. And every time we see you, we will do our best to ask the question, how are you doing? And to not ask it in an insincere way where you're not really wanting a response, but to ask it in a way where I would like to know the answer if you want to share that with me. And eventually there's going to be a night where you have something that you want to say. And that could be the first night I meet you, or it could be the 100th night I meet you. But we will never pressure you and make you feel like you should trust us. We are just going to be there and let you decide when you feel it's appropriate. The other thing that helps is that we've built a strong relationship now with a community of young people on the streets. So you might not trust me, but if your best friend is next to you and that person gives me a hug and says, no, this is Rob from At The Crossroads. He's the one who helped me when I was in that real jam with my housing. You should talk to him about what's going on. You may have just saved us years of trust building through the way that you kind of validated our relationship.
Yeah. So when you catch a kid who's willing to say, I need a place to stay, I haven't had a good meal in 3 days, what do you do?
Usually the next step we say is, do you want to talk more? Do you want to find time in the daytime to grab lunch or coffee and talk? And again, we will go to them so they can come to our office, but we will also meet them on a street corner, a park bench, buy them a slice of pizza or burrito, and then they can talk to us about whatever they want help with. So if it's housing, if it's employment, if it's working on mental health issues, it really doesn't make a difference. We're agnostic when it comes to what their goals should be. So in the case of housing, obviously in San Francisco, that is a real challenge. And so depending on their age, depending on their options, we will help try to generate with them what they see as their options. And then we will build on top of that and let them know about other options they might not know about. And then we'll help them figure out, where is my starting point? We always feel that letting them lead the decision-making process and choosing the path of least resistance is the best way to go.
So you're not operating housing, right? That's not part of your program, but do you connect them to housing programs then, so they have a place to go?
Yeah, increasingly that is the option that we have to turn to. And I don't say have to, meaning it's a bad thing, but meaning that it's become harder and harder for them to find housing on the private market. And so, for instance, there are 4 different young adult housing programs that we are a direct referral provider to, meaning that we have slots that are saved for our clients that we can refer them to. However, that process is often a multi-month process with a number of hoops to jump through. It shouldn't be that way. It should be something where when a kid wants housing and there's a slot there, that there's a smooth and quick process to onboard them. We've had clients wait for 5 months for a slot that was already theirs just because the process was so bureaucratic and challenging. So we don't just refer clients, but we really try to shepherd them through that process. And then after that, we help them maintain that housing if that's what they want. Getting in is one challenge. Sticking with it when you've never experienced being in a congregate setting in a program where you're living by someone else's rules, that's a whole new challenge.
Yeah, I can only imagine. What are the things that cause kids to fall out of those programs?
It's a long list. I think often the culture of what it takes to be young and survive on the streets can be actually antithetical to the typical structure of a nonprofit program, in particular a housing program. So when you're on the streets, you are fiercely independent and you're constantly having to prioritize yourself, your own safety and your own needs above everything else. You don't think about, or at least you don't prioritize what happens 24 hours from now or 48 hours from now. You prioritize what will help me get through these next 24 minutes. So then you're in a housing program where a strange adult who you don't know is telling you the rules that you have to live by, where you have to figure out not just how to navigate that program for yourself, but how to make sure that you are helping the other people in the program be safe and be healthy. And it's just a whole new experience. And I think a lot of the time power struggles occur at these organizations where the desire to get young people to conform with a set of rules that can be very challenging for them, rather than approaching that in a very empathetic way and trying to help someone figure out, how do I navigate this? It's approached in a way of setting limits and often in a harsh way and being punitive. So sometimes that's the challenge. But again, if all a young person has experienced with the adults in their life is that they harm me more than they help me, and that I am better off trusting myself, it's a really tough transition to then be in a program where you're told, if you don't blindly trust these adults and follow what they want, you can't be here anymore.
Wow. Yeah, that would be hard. How much do the kids struggle with addiction? Is that a problem, or by and large, is that not a driver, not an issue you have to deal with?
You know, it really varies dramatically among the kind of subgroups of young people that we see. So certainly substance use problems, I would say, are a very serious problem for about 30 or 40% of our clients. And substance use is a part of almost every client's lives that we work with. But in some cases, it's not a huge obstacle in their life. You know, they may occasionally smoke weed or drink in the same way that a lot of people do.
Sure.
But then there's a smaller percentage who their struggles with drugs really make it difficult for them to move forward and build the life that they want. we see a real strong difference among the Black youth and the white youth that we work with. With the white youth, substance use, in particular, a combination of alcohol and heroin, is often a really debilitating problem in their life. With the Black youth that we work with, it's less prevalent, the problems with substances, although it can certainly exist as well.
Housing costs have got to be a key driver of the whole problem, right? Let's talk about that for a minute. There may be no more expensive place to live in the United States, few in the world that are more expensive than San Francisco now.
Yeah, it's oppressive. I mean, it makes it so difficult for our young people. It used to be that when our kids were starting to get their lives together, getting into housing was just part of the equation. It wasn't always the primary focus and the thing that was most challenging. Well, that's shifted. Now, when our kids are really trying to move forward in their life, housing is the barrier that requires more of their attention and more of our attention than anything else. The other thing that shifted is that it used to be that kids just kind of found housing as they were getting employed, going back to school, getting their lives together. Now, usually there are one of three options that happen in their lives. One is if they happen to have family or friends in San Francisco, they end up staying with them for a period of time. Or they're getting into subsidized housing, the kind of housing that we were talking about before that we refer clients into. Or they're leaving San Francisco and moving to other areas in the Bay Area or beyond. They are rarely able to just get a room in a roommate situation in the way that they may have been able to 10 years ago. And having that option off the table has made it a lot harder for our kids to succeed, even when they're working incredibly hard.
Yeah. Is the minimum wage higher now in San Francisco? It seems to me you have a minimum wage that's not the federal wage of $7.25.
Yeah, so there was a vote passed a few years ago that was led by Supervisor Gene Kim to increase the minimum wage to $15 an hour, and it's been staggered in over the course of a few years. I can't remember right now if it's at 13, 14, or 15, but it's considerably above the national minimum wage. At the same time, to afford a studio apartment in San Francisco, you would need to be working 3 to 4 minimum wage jobs full-time, and I'm not exaggerating on the numbers. It's pretty staggering. A shockingly high percentage of our clients are already working when we first encounter them. Somewhere between 30 and 40% of our clients are working, and in many cases have full-time jobs, but that is not nearly enough to prevent them from being homeless.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
Do you think the city people, the mayor and the city council, do they have an appreciation for this problem? Certainly they know it's going on, but is there nothing that can be done?
I think they have a growing appreciation, and I'm more optimistic about the city's response than I've been in years. I would say that in his first term, I don't think the mayor placed a high priority on homelessness. He was very, very focused on economic development. But in the last 2 to 3 years, there's been a real shift. And people question why that is, but at the end of the day, that doesn't matter to me. All that matters is that there's an increased priority on homelessness. One of the things he did was he created a new department of homelessness and supportive housing. So previously, homelessness had been held in many different city departments, and he consolidated them. And at first, a lot of the providers and advocates like me were worried that it was something that would look good but not actually accomplish anything. But he put someone with more than 20 years of experience in working with homelessness in charge of the department. He added about $30 million to the budget, which was significant. And it helped generate 2 or 3 critical things. The city now has a clear plan. Agree with it or disagree with it, that's up to you. But it has a clear plan that in my mind makes a good amount of sense. I agree with the majority of it. I think there are opportunities to do more, but I think it's pretty solid. It also helped attract private resources. The Tipping Point Foundation put $100 million into homelessness in the last year. Or they haven't put it in, but they created the initiative, and it's going to be distributed in the coming years. I don't think that without the city's increased focus internally, that kind of private support could have been generated. So I think the city is slowly moving in the right direction, but it is a slow process. And additionally, it's a national problem that is being dealt with at a local level. Localities are expected to address homelessness and receive the responsibility and the blame. But if you look up and down the West Coast, every major city in the West Coast is experiencing a significant rise in homelessness. San Francisco has actually kept it at bay, which, may feel like a kind of shallow victory. And in some ways it is to say, oh, it's not increasing that quickly. But compared to other cities, it actually is something of an accomplishment.
Yeah. What is the big win that you would brag about at the Crossroads?
If this makes sense, the biggest win is that we've never kicked a young person out of our program. That we can truly say that our support is unconditional. There are so many wins that we've had with clients, whether it's a client who we work with who now owns his own restaurant in Hayward that he started, or a client who recently bought his own home in Marin County, selling his artwork and now supports his wife and his 3 kids. A client who has started his own merchandising business that now employs formerly homeless people, incarcerated people, and people with substance use problems, and has more than 20 staff. So there's so many of our clients who've gone on to do amazing things that give us that daily feeling of wins. But on a global level, I feel like unconditional support should be the norm in our young people's lives when it comes to service provision. And it shouldn't be a radical idea, but it is. And I'm so proud of the fact that every young person that we work with knows that we really mean it when we say we are going to be here for you. And it doesn't matter what your belief system is, what decisions you make, how you treat us, how you treat others. We'll continue to be there for you.
That's powerful. That's powerful. It's inspiring to talk to you. I've often wondered who it was that was doing that job, because every other program has a filter, right?
Yeah.
And they filter people out who can't toe the line. And there are reasons for that. There are good reasons for that.
Absolutely.
But somebody has to be the guy that looks after all the people who can't handle the other programs, right? Because they're people.
Yeah.
They have the same value and human dignity, or deserve the same dignity anyway that the rest of us do.
That's absolutely right. And I think that what we have found is that it can truly have a magical impact on young people to get that unconditional support. I was fortunate. I was raised with a handful of people who I knew were going to be there in my lives no matter what. And when I started doing this work in college and started working with young people who had never known what it meant to have someone care about them who was going to be safe and consistent in their lives, I started to understand how it limited their sense of self, their sense of the world, the sense of what they have to offer the world and what people have to offer them. Well, the flip side of that is when you bring that into someone's lives, it can be as if like they have blinders that start to come off and they start to see this much more broad vision of who they can be in the world and what the world can bring to their lives. And it's just incredible to watch that process unfold.
Sure. Well, you must be someone that these youth look up to a lot. Who is your role model?
I wouldn't say I have one, but a couple of people come to mind. The people who have managed to do this work for 30, 40, 50 years and sustain themselves are remarkable to me. There's a man named Jack Jacqua who was the co-founder of Omega Boys Club, and he's not even someone that I'm that close to. I haven't seen him in a couple years, but he is, I don't know how old he is, maybe in his 70s, and his name rings out among young people on the streets. He is still connecting with them. He is still going to the jails and has sustained himself despite all of the challenges of the work. A woman named Sandy Close, who has been running an organization called New American Media for, again, about 40 years. She's well into her 70s. Sadly, they're closing down, which is heartbreaking to me. But watching the way that she possesses a drive that is just indefatigable, it's not the people who do the work, it's the people who continue to bring heart and integrity and energy to the work for years and years. So Sandy and Jack are two people who I think come to mind for me.
Certainly great examples. Why did you tackle this project? I mean, I get why it's theoretically important. Why did you feel personally responsible to do it?
You know, sometimes you choose things and sometimes things choose you. And this was one of those cases where it chose me. When I was a sophomore in college, my primary goal when I took classes was to never have to wake up before noon. And so I was picking among 3 different history classes that fit that bill. And one of them was a class called Poverty and Homelessness in America. It was taught by Al Camarillo. This was at Stanford University. And I took the class without even knowing it had an internship component. Then I got to pick an internship, and I picked one at a drop-in center for homeless teenagers in San Jose. And it was the first time in my life I fell in love. 2 weeks into it, it was all that I was thinking about. It's the only place I wanted to be. I just felt so drawn to spending time with these kids. It wasn't about a desire even necessarily to help, and God forbid it wasn't about a desire to save. It was just a feeling of sitting with them and listening to them and talking with them felt right and felt meaningful. I certainly didn't know I would do it for the next 24 years of my life, but I knew that something really profound was happening for me. And then what happened is after I graduated college, I was hired to work there full time. And they went through a leadership switch, and it no longer felt like a good fit. And I started looking into other options. And a friend of mine from college who was graduating, she was looking into options and working with homeless youth. She had also interned through that class, also really loved the work. And we would talk about, wouldn't it be amazing if one day someone's, oh, sorry, I just lost you for 1 second. I apologize. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. She said, we would talk about, wouldn't it be wonderful if one day someone started a program that was specifically focused on the kids who either get kicked out of our program or who tell us that they'd known about it for 5 years before they ever set foot in it. And one day that conversation went from, wouldn't it be great if someone did this, to, I don't know, maybe we should give it a look. And we both knew about the Echoing Green Foundation in New York City that funds social entrepreneurs all around the world to start a new program. And I think the application was due the next day. And so we looked at each other and we said, what are you doing tonight? And had we not gotten that fellowship, At The Crossroads wouldn't exist. I can't tell you the story of come hell or high water, we would have done this. But we got it, and we both thought we would do it for a year or two, and this is now year 20 for me of doing it.
Wow. Amazing work. Amazing work. Rob, what's your superpower?
What is my superpower? I think that my partner, Josh, would agree with this, that it is the ability to dissect the minutest of details and parse it and discuss it to the point where everyone around me is driven crazy. That is probably my biggest superpower.
That's great. Well, Rob, thank you for taking the time to be with us today. It's thrilled to get to know you and to hear more about your amazing work. Before you go, will you just take a minute and tell us about how people can get in touch with you and learn more about At The Crossroads?
Yeah, absolutely. You can go to our website, which is atthecrossroads.org. That's a very easy way. You can email me at robg@thecrossroads.org. And it's not at and then the crossroads, it's at thecrossroads.org. Those are probably the two easiest ways. One thing we're excited about is we have a brand new client video, which is just them speaking in their words about their lives. It's not yet up on the website, but it's really powerful. On our website, we have a 15-minute documentary that I think really helps paint a picture of our work. And At The Crossroads is dependent on building a strong community of people in order to do our work. We're 100% privately supported, and we are driven by the volunteers, the donors, the board members, the people who decide that our kids' lives have meaning and value, and they want to do something to add value and to add meaning. And so we really welcome all different kinds of people getting involved.
That's great. I really appreciate your time, Rob, and wish you every success in continuing this incredible work with San Francisco's homeless youth.
Great. Thanks so much, Devin. I appreciate it. This was a lot of fun.
All righty. Let's do some good.
Thank you for listening. This podcast was recorded via Google Hangouts on Air and is available at youtube.com/Devin Thorpe. Subscribe to this podcast on Stitcher or iTunes by searching for Your Mark on the World. Every weekday, Devin hosts a CEO, celebrity, entrepreneur, or other changemaker here on the Your Mark on the World show to inspire and prepare you to make your mark. Devin is a champion of social good, writing about, advocating for, and advising people who are doing good. He is a Forbes contributor who is a recognized thought leader in social entrepreneurship, impact investing, and crowdfunding. To book Devin as a speaker, visit devinthorpe.com. Learn more about Devin's work at yourmarkontheworld.com.